not tired.
What it do? This is the Fairly Odd Coparents. We are here with episode 8, module 4. We're discussing boundaries. And I am one of your hosts, Ronnie, and my co-host is...
I'm Nessa.
Yay. All right, so module 4, boundaries. That's what we got in store for today. And, well, with every episode, we'll start off... Oh, actually, we're throwing a curveball this episode. Instead of a dad joke, we're going with a mom riddle. So...
Yeah, we are. Okay, are you ready? You ready to get stumped?
Is that it?
Yeah, I'm such
Is that the riddle?
Okay. No.
Oh. Yes.
You gotta put on your listening ears. Turn them on.
They're on.
Turn them on, Junior. Okay.
Okay, on.
All right, so your mom has 4 kids.
She has 5, but okay.
They're named North, South, East. What's the name of the 4th kid?
I don't know. That was such a long pause. I have no idea. Was it? I want to say West, but I feel like it's a setup.
Nope, not. I'm sorry. Final answer?
Megan.
Nope.
Damn it.
Yeah,
what's the name of the 4th kid?
Junior.
What?
Name of the 4th kid is Junior. It's your name. You're the 4th kid.
I
don't know.
Oh,
you don't know your name?
Damn it. I just got the riddle. Your mom has 4 kids.
Yep.
Their names were North, South, East. What's the name of the 4th? God damn it.
I know. I'm so good.
Such a good riddle.
Good, Nessa.
Nice mom riddle.
Your turn.
So upset with myself.
All right. So we have a parent story of the week, and Junior's going to share because Junior got to come into town this weekend. The boys got to spend time with him and go off and to do mom, son, or dad, son adventures. And
I'm a boy.
Yeah, I know.
And a dad.
Totally.
Yeah, so I got to come in town this past weekend, and it went by way too fast. It went by so fast. Do, right? I was like, damn it. It was it was time to leave, and I was like, dang it, man. I have that it just went by way too quick. But this past weekend, we got to have a really good conversation with the boys. And the reason why I wanted to bring this story up is because it was something that we kind of worked together on. It was something that I was grateful for because I think like what we had said in the previous episode, right, was that Armani and Sebastian have brought up some things to you concerning some things that were going on with the summer and some other things happening in our lives. And where there was things revealed to me that I was like, oh, I didn't know that they had some things they've been discussing with you and they haven't mentioned to me or haven't brought up to me. So this past weekend, you kind of initiated a family talk.
Yeah.
And I was super appreciative of that because I was planning to have it this past weekend with them. because I wanted to just keep an open floor for them to talk about anything, and I wanted to hear what they were thinking with all the changes going on in our lives and the summer changing and all of that stuff. So you had decided, hey, guys, dad's here. Like, there are some things you guys were talking to me about. I think this is a great opportunity for you guys to share with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yes, thank you. Like, I appreciate this. This is the perfect time. Um, so that's kind of the co-parent part. And it ended up being a really good conversation with the boys where, well, Sebastian was more hesitant. He was more resistant um,
Oh,
to sharing his little
yeah.
bit.
I don't think he was
Um,
resistant. I think he's still nervous about sharing certain things with you.
yeah, maybe that's what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, maybe expectation of how I may react, or
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I don't know. But he definitely was more hesitant, and he was perfectly like, hey, if you don't want to say, like, talk, like, that's okay too. Mani was more willing to open up, and he shared some things with me that I hadn't heard before, or hadn't, um, haven't been aware of.
Right.
Uh, and it also allowed, that space allowed for me to respond in a way that was safe for him.
Mm-hmm.
It allowed me to create that safe space for, hey, like, buddy, you can say whatever it is that is on your mind, whatever that you're feeling, and like, I'm gonna love you regardless, and we can talk about this, and we can see how to move forward with what you're feeling. And for me, I think he felt really good after, um, because his, like, energy towards me was like really loving.
Mm-hmm.
So I think him feeling like he can discuss stuff or bring up stuff or talk about something, and not feeling like it's going to be something that's going to negatively affect him because dad is now hearing this and dad may not like it. And it went the opposite, where dad was like open to hearing it. Dad was still giving love, and appreciative of hearing what he had to say. I think it created that, like, okay, like, I feel good about this. Um, yeah, and that's kind of basically it. And so I just wanted to bring that up. Nessa created a safe space for us to have a great conversation with the boys, and for me to hear a lot of things that were going on with them. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
no, I agree with your perspective. Like, I know that both the boys had expressed some hesitation and some anxiety over sharing their feelings with you and making you aware of how they're feeling about, some of these changes that are going on. And I did have conversations with the boys about fairness, and
Hmm.
that I appreciated that they confided in me, and they always get to confide in me and let me know what's going on with them. And I know that you would very much appreciate being in the know of what's going on. And so helping them like see that you're open to having this conversation and there wasn't going to be any kind of punishment or retaliation or like negative energy around
Hmm.
it. And I do agree that you could see that like this burden that was kind of weighing on their shoulders kind of was just like lifted off once they were able to like
Hmm.
express how they're feeling and saw that everything was okay. Like they were still going to be
Yeah.
loved and they were still going to be supported and they were still going to, still going to get to see dad. Because I honestly feel as though the boys, one of their biggest fears is that, like, we're not going to get to see you, like, we're not going to.
Yeah.
And so I think that might be why they are tiptoeing. It's like, oh, is dad gonna like not come around as often because we hurt his feelings or we got him mad, something like that. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely could see their like hesitation and their like nervousness, like kind of in the beginning. And at the end of it, they felt way more, they looked more comfortable, more kind of accepting of just the
yeah.
conversation.
If I could
Um
also share too, like after the conversation, you and I got to have a talk ourselves. And I
mhm,
think that I really appreciated that you allowed me to give you tips that are working for me and just let you know, like, this
mhm.
is how I generally approach a conversation with the boys so that they do feel safe and so that they do kind of open up to me. And you were open to it. You like listened to it and you considered it. And so like, not a lot of dads do that. Not a lot of co-parents do that. You know, they kind of get defensive and they veer of like, I know what I'm doing. Don't tell me how to be a dad. Don't tell me how to talk to my kids, you know, that kind of thing. So, I appreciate that. Not only did you show that openness with the boys, but you continued it on with me as well. So,
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that's where you learn. I think for me, I like to hear it. I like to hear the different perspectives, viewpoints, what has worked or what hasn't. And like, I will choose, like, of all those things that you said, like, oh, I think this is something that I would like to do, or this, or this. And there might be something in there too where I'm like, yeah, I'm not really too sure about this one. I may not keep this one.
yeah,
But, these other ones, like, yeah, these sound great. Like, I think this is like a great idea. Um, and why not? Like, why not try different things to see what works well and what sticks? And then also too, like, freaking kids are going to be changing. Like, Monty's 10 and it feels like sometimes he's like 15, and like, he's if you can't change with their age, like if you stay stuck in like a certain way for like their whole lifetime, gosh, that's gonna be pretty difficult if you can't kind of roll with how your kids are changing.
yeah, yeah,
Um, to a certain extent, some things don't need to change, but tactics and like how you speak and like how what matters and like to them is gonna be it's all gonna change with time.
yeah.
So uh, it's definitely better to stay open now than to not. But anyways, let's get into what today's episode is about. So the purpose of today's episode is all about boundaries. So we're going to talk about boundaries, what are boundaries, how to set them, and kind of just why use them. Um, yeah, and kind of what works, what doesn't work, and how to enforce it, and all kind of just a whole boundary conversation.
Mhm.
So if you want to read the ever so lovely definition of personal boundaries, that would be great.
Yeah. So, um, I, looked it up a little bit and saw like so many different perspectives of boundaries and the way people like you take it in. But I really love this one from loveisrespect.org because it got down to like the core of a boundary. Is where a boundary is where one thing ends and another begins. And that can be applied geographically, it can be applied in real life. Like, that is truly a boundary, right? One territory begins and another territory ends, right? And so we can see that similarities with relationships, and we apply that in your friendships and your relationships and parenting and what have you. And so it's this is like where we will be stemming from all of the different ideas and different topics that we're going to be hitting on today. So
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing with that. So like you're talking about it's like where one thing ends and another begins. Uh, the thing that pops up for me, it's like where one behavior ends and another behavior
Mm-hmm.
begins.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, that's like boundaries, like in
Mm-hmm.
itself. Anyways, anyway, that's it.
So yeah, so whenever we go into boundaries, we're talking about the choices that we're making and behaviors that we're tapping into to do what keeps you safe, what keeps you healthy, what keeps you in alignment with your values, with the things that are important to you. And so, yeah, so that's our definition for boundaries, and that's the scope, the boundary that we're going to be talking within, if you will.
Wow, the boundary within the
You like
boundary.
that?
Yeah,
I can
that's
be
good.
smart sometimes.
That was good.
So,
Oh, well, do we want to go into our next
so
subject?
this is something that we've gone back and forth on. So the difference between a request and a boundary, right? Like, what is the difference there? Um, and so for me, I will say that,
I will say this was we had a whole conversation about this in
yeah,
itself, and so we're gonna kind of both go into it with how we see it, and I don't think neither of us are wrong. I think we're both right, and I think we just view it a little bit differently, um, while still both being right. And so this is actually gonna, for me, I think this is gonna be fun to even just be speaking on this and kind of giving you guys two different perspectives about the differences between requests and boundaries. And then I don't know, you guys can let us know if we're both batshit crazy or if you guys think we're
we're
on it.
weirdos. Yeah, it's okay. I own that I'm a weirdo. I will wave that flag. Everybody who knows me, like, oh, it's Nessa. It's just,
Yeah, weirdo for life.
it's okay. Um, so yeah, so for me, a request is like literally making a request, asking somebody, are they willing to do XYZ, right? And they get to respond with a yes or no. They get to decide. The other end gets to have control over the way this request ends up being for me. And so that is a request, whereas in a boundary, I get to say, this is what's accepted and what is not accepted. And if I've set this boundary, there is no request that, like, can you change this behavior? I'm just letting you know that this kind of behavior is not tolerated. And if you don't want to respect that boundary, then we get to figure out a different way that our relationship works or our friendship works or what have you. And so, yeah, so for me, like, that is a difference between a request and a boundary.
Yeah, so I think we both agree on what a request is, right? A request is what you're asking somebody to do, right? If somebody, wakes up and they're super energetic and they're like, good morning. Oh my God, what is it? Beautiful day. Opens up the curtains and like starts singing, and you're like, shut the fuck
That's how
up.
you
Like,
are.
yeah, I know. Uh,
And that's how I am. I'm like,
it's perfect.
shut the fuck up. Like, we're sleeping. Stop
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Right. So like if you make that request, right? Like, hey, can you like maybe just not be so energetic in the
Maybe
morning?
just
Like
stop.
that's a request. Like right? That's a request. It's a request to say like, if you're in an argument or something and somebody starts yelling at you and you request, "Hey, could you please not yell at me?" That's a request, right? It's anything you ask of somebody to do,
Mm-hmm.
and they can either honor it or they cannot. It's totally up to
Right.
them. Um, and a request has that's all it is. There's nothing that comes after a request. Um, so for me, that's what a request is, and I think we are both on the same page of that. And where a boundary comes into play for me is if you make a request, they decide not to honor it, or they decide to break, or they decide not to honor it, and it's like, cool, this behavior is going to only continue, then I get to do what I need to do to make myself okay, or to be in a safe space, or to be in a healthy place, right? So if somebody says, or you request, hey, can you please not yell at me when we're talking, and they continue to keep yelling at you, you get to decide, like, okay, cool, well, I'm going to hang up the phone because uh, I'm not okay with this. Um, or you can just, like, that's a boundary in itself. You hang up the phone, it makes you okay. I think where we get into a place of disagreement is you can also make the request of, hey, can you not yell at me, and set the boundary that, um, if you continue to yell at me, uh, I'm gonna get off of the phone. Like, I'm not gonna stay in the phone conversation because I don't want to be yelled at. And that's where a boundary comes into play for me. So for me, a boundary is anytime you decide to do something for yourself that changes an outcome, where it makes you yourself feel safe, or makes you feel okay, or in a good place, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I, for me, there's a request that is made, and then there's a boundary that it's set. And I guess for me, I know, like you were saying, like you get to make a request, and it will turn into a boundary eventually, you know. And I guess for me, like I don't see it that way. Like I'm not necessarily gonna always make a request. I'm just gonna let you know, like straight out the gate, even like I don't accept this kind of behavior. So just making you aware that this kind of behavior isn't tolerated. And you can respect the boundary, and you know, or you don't. But I'm not requesting anything from you. I'm just letting you know, like this isn't tolerated. So for me, that I don't. I don't think I was thinking back on it, and I'm like, I don't make requests that turn into boundaries. Like I just set boundaries, and I have made requests before, absolutely, but they don't eventually turn into boundaries. It's just like, no, I made their request, and they decided to honor it, and my life is good, or they decided not to honor it, and that's on me because I made it a request. I didn't necessarily turn it into a boundary. And I also didn't
Yeah.
feel strong enough about it to turn it into a boundary. So I guess that's why, like, I don't know, for me they don't intermingle, and I guess for you, like, they do. So
Yeah, and that's where we get to different places, where I mean, I completely think that Nessa is right also, right?
mhm.
Because because you can have a boundary without ever making a request, or even making a boundary statement, right? Like, as soon as somebody starts yelling at you, your boundary could be like, cool, you're yelling at me, I'm out. Like, you don't even have to say anything in that. Somebody can start yelling at you. You can just turn the other way and be like, yep, I'm not listening to this, and just completely leave, like, the situation, leave the room,
Mhm.
like, hang up the phone. That's an immediate, like, boundary within itself, without making any kind of request, without making any kind of uh statement of a boundary, anything. Like, it just happens. um and, like, for you, you were saying, like, hey, I only make boundaries, like, I put it out there. It's like, I don't tolerate yelling at me, and so don't do it, because whatever happens afterward would happen. So for me, when you say that, it's like, well, that part is the request for me. And then the boundary is,
Mhm.
if somebody does that, then that's where you're like, cool, you did this, now I get to take care of me.
Mhm.
um and it's just, honestly, it's just how you view it, how you name it, how you word it, how you want to view it. It's all ultimately the same thing for me. We just label it differently, honestly. And ultimately, it's boundaries are there to protect you. It's not to control other people. It's not to expect other people to change. um Boundaries are there to make sure that you don't tolerate what you're not okay with,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's what makes relationships more defined.
Mm-hmm.
um there's more like expectation of knowing what to expect or what to not
Mm-hmm.
expect. um I think when quality or qualities when boundaries aren't in place is when people don't know how to act around other
Yeah, things get
people,
murky.
or people's feelings get
Yeah.
hurt. Yeah, it gets weird,
Mm-hmm.
right? People's feelings get
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah, because I don't know my
um
expectations. I don't know my boundaries. I don't know what's
yeah.
okay and what's not okay.
Yeah, and then there's also like the fact, right? If you don't have boundaries for yourself, right? If you just allow other people to kind of just do whatever they want with you, take up your time, like take up your space, um, and you don't kind of set those boundaries for yourself, then you start feeling like, well, damn, I'm just kind of like everybody's just kind of treating me however, and like when do I start feeling like I'm going to be treated better, or
Right.
and whatever the scenario is. So even having boundaries, I mean, having the boundaries for yourself of what you're going to tolerate
Yeah.
within your own
I
self is a
I
big
think
thing.
like if I could just share this example, for me, I have a boundary that my family is aware of and my friends are aware of. But it's not something that I like announce. It's just eventually, people started to understand and see it. My kids are aware of this boundary. My husband is aware of this boundary. I Growing up, I grew up in a very unstable and unsafe home, and so now, if there is anything that threatens the sanctity of my home, that threatens the safety of my home, or the harmonious atmosphere that we create in my home, is no longer welcome. Like that force, that energy isn't welcome to come back into our home. I don't allow any kind of negativity or threats or violence. Not that there's anybody that's violent in my life, but you know what I mean? Like, if there is something that
Mm-hmm.
threatens that balance that we have here in our home, then like eventually you're going to get pushed out, and you're like, this place is no longer going to be a place that you can come to anymore. Does that necessarily mean that I'm not going to hang out with that person or see that person, or that person's going to be in my life anymore? Like, not necessarily, but our relationship gets to look different. Like, we get to hang out, or we get to see each other, we get to meet up somewhere that's not my home, because my home is a safe place for my children and myself and my husband, and like that is a boundary. So I think, for me, that was just like an example of how, like, just setting something healthy that protects you and your sanctity and your safety, um, can go forward. So,
Yeah, so I think so there's a lot of things that kind of go with that, right? uh so obviously that's a really big space for you, right? People bringing in um kind of bad energy, either violent energy, aggressive energy, or somebody's just not harmonious or just can't play nice, right? Not being there.
mm-hmm,
um that's like a great boundary to have. Keep that place safe. And if somebody can't respect that, like those are the people that you definitely need to keep hold the boundary with, right? Because those are the people that are just going to keep pushing that boundary and seeing if they can break it, seeing how far they can go with it. And if you don't hold the boundary that you're setting for yourself, um, then they're just going to keep trying and they're going to keep doing
mm-hmm,
it. So then that's when like you're saying, like it may not be something where you're like, oh, this person's completely cut out of my
mm-hmm,
life. It just may mean that, like, okay, instead of meeting at my house, we'll just go meet at a restaurant, or we'll go, like, we won't get together at my home, but maybe we'll get together at a coffee shop or something. um Something that where you are more tolerable in. And I think that's like a great example of having a boundary. Um, and
So, if we want, we can go into like what healthy and unhealthy boundaries tend to look like. Um, can I go into that?
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, so in our discussion, we talked about like the differences between a healthy and unhealthy boundary, because you can definitely set a boundary that isn't necessarily a healthy one, particularly in co-parenting relationships. You know, because our co- our our
Yes, for
podcast about
sure.
co-parenting. So, so we are going into
Yes.
like I said, the ability to come to your house. Like, me setting that boundary, like nobody can come to my home, would be a little severe and probably unhealthy for my children and my husband and myself, because that's not allowing like social life to occur, not allowing like visitations to happen. And so that's very much like sheltering them and cutting them off from.
That's a very like strenuous,
Yeah.
rigid like boundary.
Yeah.
Like nobody's allowed to
Yeah.
come to my house because I don't want any bad energy coming
or
in.
or
Like
just
that
like, I
you
just don't
probably
want
got
people in my house, like.
yeah, you probably got some unhealthy things
Yeah,
happening
which
with
I've
that
seen,
boundary.
but but then like there's a boundary that I have that I believe is healthy, where it's, if we've made several threats, if we have threatened the harmony in the home, or if we threatened the sanctity of the home, if we've made threats to people's lives or loved ones, if there is a potential for violence to happen, like, you know, that would be something that would be obviously healthy, because we don't want that kind of negative energy or those threats to come into our home and put our children at risk, put our own lives at risk. Um,
Mhm.
Another boundary that we discussed was attending your child's school function. If a primary custodial parent were to say, like, you don't get to be at this school function if I'm there, and I'm not going to be there if you're there, like, well, like, unless there's a particular reason for us to get to that severe agreement, then why can't we simply both be there, sit in separate ends of the room if we can't communicate, and enjoy our child's school function, enjoy the play, the game, the recital, the show, whatever it is that is being presented. Um, and again, unless like safety was something that was being threatened, or being
Or there's something not like law that
restrictive.
something written or
Hmm.
restrictive that you have to
Hmm.
obey. Um,
And
something like that in
and
nature.
even
But
then, if it's written in your divorce decree and your parenting plan, if there's a temporary restraining order or some sort of restrictiveness in a legal document, it's because there's been a threat made. It's because there's a history of
mhm.
violence or something like that. So somebody doesn't simply get a temporary restraining order just because I don't like you, like that. That doesn't necessarily occur. So
Yeah,
yeah, I agree. Like, there gets to
yeah,
be some sort of like, there's a safety issue that is being threatened there.
right. And like, so this is a great topic to bring up though, because a lot of co-parenting relationships aren't very amicable, and like, so yeah, like one primary custodial parent saying, "Hey, you're not allowed to be at this event if I'm there." Um, that can be pretty harmful to the child, um, and it doesn't really move anything forward, right? That's a boundary that's like uh, it's not very great, unless that person is violent every time they're around.
Mm.
Like that's understandable then. But if you're able to be in the same place, like you were saying, like do it. There are boundaries that even can be put with that, right? Like put in the boundary of, hey, if we're gonna be in the same place, we're gonna stay in our separate areas. That way you guys can both enjoy the show. And like That's another boundary that could be very healthy and moves you
Mm-hmm.
forward. Like that's the whole point of boundaries, is to move you forward, something that makes it safe and healthy for yourselves, safe and healthy for your children even. And if it comes to a point in time where like cool, these boundaries can be like lifted or um
Adjusted, even.
like
Mm-hmm.
adjusted, like great. And then you guys can like actually talk to each other a little bit, like, and enjoy it together. Like that would be
Mm-hmm.
great too. But if that's not possible, that's where boundaries can really serve
Mm-hmm.
everyone. Um,
Yeah,
so,
like, going to the child school function and sitting in separate areas of the room, and let it be known that, like, we will communicate via email or text. We won't communicate while we're there. That could be like an additional boundary that is set to allow both parents to enjoy your child and protect
mhm,
yourselves from any further tension or any more conflict that may arise. Yeah.
right.
And I agree with what you were saying too. Like, these boundaries are to help you move forward, to help you the progress of your relationship. And these boundaries, they may have to stay for an extended period of time, for a short period of time,
Sure.
forever. But if you are getting to see your children consistently, or if you are becoming into or coming into a place where you are more amicable, and the fights begin to ease off, and you get to just pass off your children back and forth without yelling and screaming and all of the issues or all of the conflict, then for me that's progress. For me that's moving forward right there. It doesn't We're not
Hmm.
holding hands and singing kumbaya or anything like that, but there's no conflict there. There's no like tension, and your children feel that. Your children know when there's tension, when there's awkwardness. um it's something that you don't want to have your children around that. Like, that's something that turns into stress for them, turns into anxiety for them, and it becomes this
Hmm.
domino effect, really. So, uh, another example that we talked about with healthy and unhealthy boundaries is whenever you do have conversations with your co-parent, sticking to your children. If you're not able to talk socially, just stick to what's important. Your children, stick to the parenting plan, stick to what is going on with your kids. Hey, Armani got straight A's. He passed his STAR test. Like, Sebastian got hit
Hmm.
at school today. Like, he's going to go to the nurse. Like, those are updates on your children. Junior might have
Yep.
questions. Um, and if Junior and I were not as amicable as we are, Junior wouldn't get to
Yep.
say, like, well, what are you going to do after school? Or are you going to take him somewhere? Like, what's going on with you? Like, why aren't you there? Like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on tonight? Like, asking about my personal life. Like, I told you about the kids. That's all I need to know. And like, we leave it at
Yeah.
that. And so,
There was I kind of wanted to say something with this because I think this was kind of something that we did. I don't know if it was intentionally or not intentionally, but early on with when we went our separate ways, there was times where if we discuss anything other than the kids, a lot of times it would start going into arguments and um and things that were like not very forward moving. And I think there was a good amount of time where we just like, you know what, like focus on the kids. And I don't think I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, but it kind of just happened because it kept things moving forward. It kept the kids the focus. And there was a period of time where we would just, it was the kids and that's what we would talk about. And I know, I think for me, I would try to avoid kind of the personal life talk just because it would become sensitive at times. Um, and that's very real also, right? Because a lot of times, these with co-parents, there can be a lot of hurt, a lot of frustration, a lot of negative views on the other party. And so sometimes it just has to be that, like, hey, let's just keep it about the kids. That way we're not like bickering about everything else or all the old hurt or all the things you're not doing, or because it's very easy to make the other person wrong or point out the things that aren't going right.
Yeah.
um and so at least it kind of constricts it to the things that just keep you guys moving forward. And then for us, I know after a period of time, um for both of us in healing and talking to, we got to kind of lower those walls a little more and start being able to communicate more, and um things just kind of progressed naturally. So, and that, I think that's where boundaries really can come into play and be helpful with exactly
Mm-hmm.
this, discussing only the children or parenting plan. Like, uh that may be how it needs to be, until it can be better.
And I want to point out too that when you're talking about the children or the parenting plan, you can easily slip into, well, you didn't pick them up when you were supposed to at 6 o'clock and yada yada, like go into this negativity of
Hmm.
blaming and I don't even know, like just negativity, right? And so you get
Hmm.
to this is where like you get to step back into the values that you created with your co-parent and lean onto the communication skills that you practice and talk about your kids and focus on forward movement and progressive thinking and discussing what you didn't do and how you didn't show up and etc. It's not progressive. So like, do we get to take responsibility for the things that have happened? Sure, but there's a way to progressively talk about it without going into blaming each other and being argumentative.
Hmm. Okay, and then yeah, I think we kind of hit this, right? Boundaries, they're either going to move you forward or they're going to kind of leave you
Hmm.
stagnant. Um,
Or they're going to make you go backwards, even. I feel
well,
like they can even.
healthy boundaries are going to help you move
Right.
forward. Lack of
Or unhealthy
boundaries
ones.
will, or
Hmm.
unhealthy boundaries will move you backwards or keep you
Yeah.
stagnant and keeping you where
Yeah,
you're
because
at.
you can fall back
Um,
into old patterns and be even more mad than you were in the divorce or in the breakup or whatever. Like I'm gonna be in
yeah,
even more resentment
that's true.
now because so it not only will keep you in a stagnant place, but it can also have you move backwards.
Just fuel your hatred for that damn other co-parent. I'm just kidding. I know it's out there. It happens. I'm glad our relationship's not like that.
No.
Um and okay, so now we had some boundaries that you want to talk about for self, co-parents, parents, boundaries for kids. Um is there any one of these you specifically wanted to talk about first?
No. I just wanted to highlight that there are different kinds of boundaries. There's boundaries that you set for yourself that protect yourself. There's boundaries that you can set for your co-parenting relationship or your parent. And then there's boundaries you can set for your kids, even that are healthy boundaries with your kids. And so I think they're all really important in this sector of co-parenting, and I think they all are a step into the right direction.
Yes, I completely agree. I also think boundaries boundaries for kids is really important also as the parent. Uh I think a lot of times, um parents just make requests to kids and just like, hey, since I asked you to do this, like, um, and just expect it to just happen. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And I think this is where it comes into play is there's a difference between just making a request and then holding a boundary to that request, right? Or just setting a boundary as from Nessa's viewpoint. Um, because I know for me, man, my kids are like, I don't know if any other parents have this going on, but they'll make like these noises, like these moans, and like I don't know if it's like an elementary school thing or
Oh,
like a
that noise. Oh. Got it. Okay.
no. I'm talking about like the
Yeah.
sexual moans
Mm-hmm.
and like oh
Did I
yeah
did I show
and
you that TikTok where the mom, like, she got
yes.
a principal calling her and was like, "So your son was moaning in class today?" And he got it because he had a sleepover and heard the parents at a sleepover, and so
I'm just I don't know if anybody else has got this going on, but the whole like kid like my kids saying, "Yeah, daddy," like I'm so overhearing that crap. I'm so overhearing that. I'm so overhearing the sexual moans that they don't even realize they're doing. Like I
um,
am so over it.
I mean,
So like I have set I have made the request of my
I
kids to no
didn't
longer
request
do
nothing.
that. Like
You don't do it. Just don't. No.
I have made that request to no longer do that. And if I hear it, and I have told them, that boundary gets crossed, I get to put them in um what is the word
Timeout.
like like no talk like talking timeout talking. Is that a word?
I know.
Is that a thing? Timeout talking. It's like,
We're
you know
playing the
what?
silent game.
Uh,
Mandatory.
I'm like, I'm embarrassed. I feel so humiliated right now because this is happening in public.
Ooh,
Like,
that just gave me the
no
chills.
talking.
Yeah, so I know that what I have done, I'm obviously not the gentle parent in this co-parenting relationship. Like, people know this. When people see me parent in public, I give the mom look 100%. Gentle parents come at me, like, it's fine. But no, I give my kids the mom look. I whisper in their ear. What did you say? Did you just say what I think you said? And immediately my son's like he sinks, like he gets smaller. It's like, no, like, do you know what's gonna happen when we get home? And he's like, yes. Like, yes, you're gonna receive a punishment, so you gotta cut it out, or you'll receive the punishment in public. I don't care who's looking, you're gonna get a punishment. So, and then if it's happened at home, obviously I don't have to smile and save face. But I have called him out and said, "Do you want me to talk about my vagina? Do you want me to talk about your dad's penis? Like, do you want to talk about my boobs?" And they're like, "Mom, like, right, it's embarrassing, isn't it? It's not comfortable to hear me talk like this. What makes you think I want to hear you moaning? Like, what makes you think I want to hear you screaming daddy? Like, these are not things.
Yeah, daddy. I
Why
freaking
do you keep
hate
saying,
that. Like,
stop saying
stop
it
it.
then? You're saying it over and
Like,
over. Like,
freaking stop it. I know because it
okay.
aggravates me. Like, why are you saying that? Stop. Like, what is wrong with kids? Tell these
Yeah.
kids
But I
to
mean,
stop.
I when I made them uncomfortable, the boys were like, "Oh, I don't like it." Like, right, we don't like it. So stop doing it because I will embarrass you in front of everybody, just like we have done to me. But I feel like it's effective. Like, no, I'm not going to humiliate my children and cause trauma. And if I have given you so many warnings, which they have been given warnings, they have had conversations,
Yeah.
we have shown videos to educate them, like, we have done our due diligence. At this point, you get to feel the feeling of humiliation so that maybe you can have some empathy and realize this isn't okay behavior. So we just went on a really weird tangent. I don't know why you did that. Stop talking about the.
I don't know.
Okay,
It's
Daddy,
just
keep moving.
I'm just really annoyed.
I'm gonna start
That's
calling
all.
you Daddy. See what you do.
Stop that! I don't need a. I'm so annoyed with it.
When
Like,
I see you,
why
I'll
do
be
you?
like, "Hi, Daddy." Do it in
Oh
my
my
high pitched
gosh!
voice. I already have a high pitched voice, so
It sounded like Mickey
thanks.
Mouse. That was
Oh, when
that
we go
was
to Disney
weird.
World, I want to say it. I'm gonna say it when we're in line while we're on the roller coaster.
Um,
Daddy.
healthy
Oh
name
god.
calling. What do we got here?
Huh? What are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about boundaries, right? Okay, so
Okay.
you were talking about boundaries with kids. That's what we're talking about. You
Look. All right.
distracted me
Where
with this conversation. So
moral of the story
mm,
is there's a it's kind of like what you're saying. There's a unhealthy boundary setting where like the boundaries are way too strict. Like it's
they can
all
only
or
call you
nothing.
dad. Yeah.
You know, like boundaries are way too strict, all or
Mm-hmm.
nothing. It doesn't promote healthy
Between you and your
relationships.
kid, yeah.
Those are bad.
Mm-hmm.
When healthies or when healthy or damn it, when boundaries are very loose and aren't being held or aren't being
Mm-hmm.
set, or you allow people just to walk all over your boundaries, that is
Yeah,
also not good,
you don't have a
right?
backbone.
It's
Yeah.
unhealthy, right? You got to be somewhere
And I
in the
think,
middle.
and you know what, like not that I am a huge like social media junkie, but I've been getting a lot of these gentle parent TikToks coming up on my feed, and there was one that came up that I would like to discuss that I feel like it
Hell yeah, let's
ties
hear.
in with
Let's
like boundaries with children. So again, gentle
do it.
parenting, you're not gonna like me. So and it's fine. It's okay. We can agree to disagree. So this woman believed that she's a huge gentle parenting coach, self-proclaimed, and was saying, do you get tired of telling your children to do something like 10, 20 times? And I'm like, 10, 20 times.
Yes,
I'm not asking you if I'm getting to the 10th time.
10 or 20
Yes,
times is a lot.
thank you.
Holy
Yes, like
crap.
if a three is a lot. If I had told you three times and
Three is
you're
a
still
lot.
not doing it, I'm not going to be asking anymore. So, but she was like, if you're at the 20th time and you're getting, tension,
20
yeah,
times. Damn, that's
like
a lot. I
if
just
you're
got
getting like
goosebumps.
tension, like here's a different approach. So she suggested that instead of being like, hey, can you go pick up your shoes for me and put them in your room, she gives a
Uh-huh.
3-step scenario where you join them where they are. We sit with
Okay.
them, kind of engage
Uh-huh.
in the activity that they're doing for a couple minutes,
Okay.
and then just be like, hey, in about 2 minutes, I'm going to need you to go get your shoes and put them in the room. Okay? And then,
It's kind of a bad
and I
setup
was,
for
and
life,
that's
but
what I
okay.
said.
Does
No,
it work?
no, it doesn't.
Does it
Because I'm
work?
going to tell you this. If your
I'm
teacher,
gonna have to try
no,
it.
go ahead. If your teacher were to tell you, hey, I know that you're drawing on the wall. It looks like fun, but in 2 minutes, I'm going to need you to stop and not
When you're done with that cat, I'm gonna need you to go ahead and stop
like,
and make your way to lunch.
or like you become an adult and survive childhood and go to a boss. Your boss isn't going to be like, hey, in about 2 minutes, I'm going to need you to write up that report for me and get it back on my desk ASAP. Like, no, that's not going to happen. Your boss is going to come into your office and say, hey, I need this report. Like, get it on my desk by the end of the day, or send you an email. Like, yes, they're going to interrupt your day. Yes. And so, like, her message was like, we don't like to be interrupted as adults. It really puts us into this uncomfortable place and we don't like it. And so it makes us resistant in getting the request done. You're right. And sometimes you got to just get the job done and do it. And so, like, this approach of like gently going about it, and it was like that for me. That's an unhealthy boundary. That's not moving you forward. That's not moving your child forward, and it's not setting either of you up successfully. And so, like, I get it. Let them know, like, hey, in about 2 minutes, I'm going to need you to clean up this room. Finish up what you're doing, finish your video game, finish the, I don't know, world that you're in, the level. I don't know what you call it. Like, I get it. I
Minecraft.
get it. Like, I need to give you a warning that, wrap it up because I'm going to need you to clean your room. I'm not going to wait 20
Yeah.
times. One, I'm not going to join you in
Right.
Minecraft. No, not join you.
To get you to clean your room.
I'll give you a warning. Like, hey, I'm gonna need you to start cleaning your room in about 5 minutes. But like,
hey, I'm gonna need you to clean your room, so let's play Minecraft for a little bit, and
yeah,
then
I would
get the
understand
room.
that when it came to a toddler. When it came to a 2-year-old, 2-year-old is they're playing with their
Yeah.
dolls, they're playing with their toy cars. I'm gonna sit and I'm
Yeah.
gonna play with my little toddler and look
Yeah.
at them and
Do the little tea
cute. I'm
party.
like, oh yeah. Hey, in about 2 minutes, we're going to put these toys away. That I get. I get that. 100%. My
Yeah.
10-year-old, you're not getting that, bro. You're 10.
No.
Like, you get to progress
No.
at their age, like you were saying earlier, so.
He will walk all over
For
that
sure.
boundary, just
My
so you know.
7-year-old will walk all over the boundary. So,
well, so this is, I like that you were saying that though, right? Because you're talking about like, yeah, you're not gonna ask 20 times. You're not gonna join them so that they can start cleaning their room. But I think it does say that we kind of rely on our kids. You make a request, and this is where I'm coming from. You make a request once, maybe you make a request twice, and on the third request, you're like, boy, if you do not go pick up these shoes, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's where the boundary gets crossed. Then I am going to physically come over there and make you go pick up those shoes.
Just kidding. We don't do corporal punishment, sir. I
We love
just
our
joke
children.
about it so
We do
much
not
because
beat them.
people think we're so crazy and harsh, but no.
No, but that's
Yeah.
like right after. That's where this goes right back into it, right? Where I said you make the request, and you hope that they listen to
I
the
guess.
request. You hope that
There's no
they do it
request.
out of their kindness of their heart, that they pick up the
Nah.
shoes, and then when they don't, maybe you make another request. Hey,
No, I told
uh,
you.
remember
No,
when I
I didn't
told
make a
you
request.
to
I
pick up your
told you to pick them
shoes?
up.
Uh,
I wasn't asking. I told you pick up your shoes. If I'm here the third time, no. Yeah, see, to me, that's not a request. To me, I wasn't asking you to pick up your shoes. I told you to go pick up your shoes. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's two different ways, and I mean, they're both, and we're neither
Yeah,
of us
no.
are wrong.
I started saying, like, mom doesn't make those requests. Mom's like, hey, go get your shoes. Hey, go get your shoes. If I say it again, it's not going to be nice. Yeah, like that kind of thing. So, anywho.
Yeah, keep them. You gotta keep them kids in check, man.
So let's move on to boundaries with like co-parents. Like you and I have boundaries. I believe. I think we do. I think we have boundaries. Like I don't.
We
I
do.
can't. I can't
We
think of
like
them
to.
because they're so natural. So
For one of them, for one
yeah.
with us, really is really a heads up um with the kids when it comes to me coming in town or picking them up or when they're going to be back, that kind of thing. That's kind of been a really big boundary of you wanting to know like days, times, like, and also wanting to know ahead
Well, I'm
because
supposed to.
it
I'm
just
supposed to know. Oh.
right. And it's helpful in
Well,
itself,
yeah.
right? Like, and but that's like a thing, right? Like, that is a boundary that I know is
I
um
uphold you to.
healthy.
Okay. Yeah.
It's healthy, right? Yeah, and there has been times where like where it would be like, hey, I'm coming in town for the weekend, like, and you're like, what? Like, you're telling me
Yeah.
this now? And then I wouldn't tell you what time I was dropping them off or when I was dropping them off, like, and you'd be like, okay, well, we're not going to be home. And through a
Yeah.
process,
It's
there's
gotten better.
been it through a process, and for you making requests for me, um, that's been, and a kind of a boundary for me of like, oh, you're not gonna be home. Okay, well then now I have to like, and it was a thing of like sometimes where you're like, well, you're gonna have to kind of wait until we
Yeah,
get
I
home.
remember that. No, yeah.
Then it's like, okay,
I
well, that's what I guess I gotta figure
Yeah, no,
out then.
I forgot about
Um,
that. Yeah, there was times where she was just like, "I'm gonna drop him off at 10," and I'm like, "I'm not home." Like, I didn't know you were gonna be
yeah,
dropping him off that early. I'm not coming home until like this time. Yeah, we even met in like Austin or San Marcos, sometimes, and because I wasn't coming back into town, or I was out having brunch with friends. I don't know, something. But no, yeah, thank you for
yeah,
reminding me of that. So yeah, so I did make the request of like, hey, you kind of need to give me a bigger heads up so that there isn't that disconnect
right,
going on, and the boys are always taken care of and safe. Yeah.
right, yeah. And I mean that's kind of been I don't know, one that's just off
I
the
think
top of my
like we
head.
have come to an
Um,
agreement that we talk to each other in a certain way as well. Like we don't get into yelling matches. We don't get into name calling. I mean, we call each other names, but like we're joking. Like we have jokes back and forth,
right,
but we don't get into like
yeah,
this ugliness when we talk to each
right,
other and back and forth, because we have come to this agreement of this is how we're going to talk to each other. And I don't think it's gotten to the point where the boundary has been crossed, but I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb here and guess that if that boundary was crossed, we would be like, okay, I'm not going to finish this conversation because of the way that you're talking to me. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think I can think of like one time where it was just like, yeah, okay, I'm like, this conversation's done. Where it was just like, yeah, this where we're at right now isn't good for either of us. And then,
You were thinking that, and at
but
the
that was
time,
like,
you were thinking
what's
that
that?
back then at the time. Okay.
Right.
Got it. I th-
But that was like a
yeah.
while ago.
Okay. Got it.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's not really been something that's happened for us
Hmm.
at all, which is great.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's because we rely on the tools. We rely on the skills that we have developed, and the communication and the values. And again, like we go back to module 2 and module 1, like we use these things in real time so that we can be forward movement, so we can be progressive, so we continue to be healthy for ourselves, for each other, and for our
mhm.
children.
Hell, we had to clear off with each other before we even recorded this episode. Like, we had to do some communication and clearing with each other before we even recorded this episode.
Hmm.
And and that's real. Like, that's super real.
Yeah, we were getting
But
frustrated.
we did it. We did it.
I said,
What's
yeah, we
that?
started getting frustrated. Yeah.
We did. We were
Uh,
getting
I will
frustrated with
speak
each
from I.
other,
Like, I
and
was getting frustrated and was like, I'm going to bed. Like, this, I'm done. Yeah.
and I was like, for me, I was like, I feel like we're in a place right now that's we're not in a good
Mm,
place, and I was like, I don't want to record
yeah.
like this. Um, and so we had to talk it
Hmm.
out, and that's exactly what we did, and we got it all out, and we owned what we where we could be better, and we clarified some things, and now we made this episode talking about our kids saying, yeah, daddy,
I'm
yeah,
going to make that a soundbite.
daddy.
How do you make that a
uh
soundbite? I want to learn. How do I record you saying?
I'm not teaching you that. I'm definitely not
Damn it.
teaching you that. All right, this episode's gotten long. Should we wrap this
Yeah. I
thing
mean,
up? Boundaries.
Get them.
Keep
Stay
them.
within them. Stay within the box. I'm just playing.
Keep up. Stay with.
Think outside the box. Live in the box. I don't know. It's all a blur now. Let's go to bed.
Yeah, I know. It's midnight. I have work tomorrow.
Stop playing. How do I make a soundbite? I am going to learn this for sure. Whoop whoop.
No new sound bites.
I figured it out.
I'm putting that boundary.
I figured it out. Figured it out.
All right.
Didn't take me long.
We'll see you guys next episode.
Bye.